before we kind of kick off, I want to just do this as a separate bit because I want to send this to the guys. I'm starting a new Invisible Sun game with my Tuesday night group, and I asked this of Charlie already in the park earlier, but I'm going to ask you to repeat it if that's okay. If you would have any advice for a new player of Invisible Sun when it comes to creating characters and approaching this. Obviously, we are session 52, and
oh, wait, I thought we were past that.
No, it's 52. It's 51.
Right.
51 was
52 today.
Right.
So, do you have any advice?
It just feels like that.
And I might kind of sling it on, share it around a bit more than just the Tuesday night guys, because I think there's other people looking at the game, and if something that we can share that will let people know how to access as a player.
I think, well, I'll repeat what I said earlier. There's, you don't need to approach it like other games where when you're designing your character, you want to make sure that they're like strong enough or fast enough, or you know, there's no like physical capabilities that you need to go, what's going to come up in the game and how am I going to survive, and it's not that kind of game. And Thomas and I had quite good suggestions, mainly Thomas, about kind of starting with a concept of like a word or a thing or whatever, and just kind of brainstorming around it and developing a character rather than a player. Yeah, that was our main thing.
I guess that's it. Because you can just have, when you do level up or you purchase things, it's for whatever, I guess, as you grow, what you need.
But it's not like you want to be a tank or you want to be a ranger or you want to be a whatever.
It isn't the regular classes or races that come into it at all, because you can be whatever you want to be. I think
there's literally no limitation.
There isn't any. So you can be as out of the box as you like. I guess it also does depend on the kind of game that the DM does want to run. But even then, if it's still within the world of Saturnine and that's possible, and any of the suns, then yeah, you can.
And that's kind of another thing, like, you know, if we want to have Cerberus as the pub dog, that's fine. If you want to scotch 1,000,001 things, that's fine. If you can think of something, 99% sure it's fine in this game.
Yeah.
It's kind of echoing what Kelly and Charlie have said already, really, is compared to most other game systems, it's very free in that you don't pick a class at the outset and that's your role. You make a character, and then it's much more a case of what would my character do, as opposed to, oh, well, I'm the group's ranger, therefore I will do the rangery things or whatever. But also it's much more collaborative and even, I would say, player driven than any other game that I've played. It's not a case of, you know, the storyteller or the DM, whatever, is kind of like saying, you know, this is the quest and this is what you're doing. It's more a case of being asked the question, what are you doing? And here are a few prompts for, you know, the party to kind of, you know, pick on the threads kind of as and when they feel like it. So it's a lot more free. It's like jazz.
Jazz role playing.
It is.
It's like jazz role playing. It's
but
just
good.
It's just freaking, jazz is good.
Not a jazz fan.
I wonder whether it may be worth playing a couple of sessions without, so you just have your basic character concept, but you haven't tied yourself to one of the orders at that point. So, because I don't mind, I like being a maker, but I wonder if I'd have had that opportunity to get to know my character just as they are for a little bit, and then introduce that almost a little bit later on, saying, okay, so this is my concept. I've had a couple of games to get to know just them as a person, and then where do they fit in that whole thing of being a
classification?
Because that's the only classification you do really have
hmm
in any of it, is how your powers work and what order you belong to. But I think getting to know your character a little bit prior to that, and then, but it's not even it's not that you don't even tell them that exists before you create a character. It's just because then that, you know,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I think I know where kind of like the mindset is, right. You've got the rule book, and it's like, I've had a look through and I like the way that Vances do their spells.
Yeah.
So do you go from the numbers first?
Yeah.
And then take it from there, because you know that you're going to need X amount of sorcery and X amount of intellect and X amount of perception or whatever. Or do you say, right, I am Caliburn, I'm an itinerant gallant whatever that walks a path of suns, but you leave that order out before you then go on to it. Yeah, okay.
I don't know. It might not work, but I wonder, because I don't know. There are so many amazing things between each group that I wonder sometimes, maybe, you know, I'm not going to change it, but would Hawk be something else? Looking at her how she is now, if that makes sense.
And that's really the only thing that you can't change until you can't change. The other things, sorry?
You can.
You can.
The only
You
thing
can
that
change anything.
The only thing that you categorically cannot change is your secret soul and your heart.
Both of which we've not used.
Secret soul we've used.
Have we?
Yeah. You all chose a secret.
And we use our heart every time a card is drawn.
And your heart is the affinity for which suit of cards that you are.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, I would say, how much role-playing experience does your Tuesday group have in general?
It's role-playing, dice rolling rather than. I don't know. I persuaded them to move away from like D&D and Pathfinder, and then I ran Urban Shadows, which was a massively story-driven game, and they loved it.
Because that's what I'd say is, you know, get comfortable going for long stretches without picking up your die, because in Invisible Suns quite often you don't need to. You know, once, I think for new players particularly, it's a bit of a safety blanket. Is I want to do something, so I've got to roll the dice to do it. And that's really not the case with Invisible Sun. It's just a case of having that kind of conversation around the table, and you know, just letting it flow from there. So, you know, I mean, I've had lots of sessions where I haven't needed to roll anything at all, and I've been perfectly happy with that, because I feel like there's a narrative going on and it's moving forwards, and there's interaction happening, which is all, you know, valuable, instead of it just being like a really slow pen and paper version of a raid.
Yeah, cool.
I think as well that we've obviously developed as a group through this, but if it's quite new to this kind of style of game, then maybe it'll be more GM driven in the beginning, but then more player driven will develop out of that.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Don't forget the X cards.
Yeah. We used the this is the group that wrote the sex in Crocs on the X card. This is that group.
More please, Daddy.
That's that group. That group. Cool. Thank you very much. So I will